Okay, analytical power rankings. No intro here. I'm just going to get straight into it. I guess maybe I should just do a little bit of, setting stuff up. You see what's on the screen here with the, bottom 8 teams on the analytical power rankings. I did this for week 1. Now I'm here back after we've seen 4 games. I'm not sure how often I'm going to do this, but maybe every few weeks I will do this. I'm not going to do it every week. It's very time consuming and doesn't get the numbers to really justify doing it every week. But I'll do it every couple of weeks just because I have a good time with it, and I know some people really like it. But yeah, anyways, sort of based off PFF grades, but also based off of math, the analytical power rankings get you a win total for each position grouping. So the number you see there, that's how many wins is added from that specific grouping. So the table you see at the bottom of the screen, that is, what tier they ranked in. So all that being said, let's talk about the bottom 8 teams. And hilariously, the bottom 2 teams still have 5 wins between them. The 3-1 Giants still at number 32, and the 2-2 Bears at 31. And honestly, I kind of get it. I mean, I think the Giants maybe could be a little bit better than 2.9 total projected wins. I have a feeling they're going to, exceed that given the fact they already have 4 games into the season. But I still think that, the criticisms are fair. The offensive line outside of Andrew Thomas has had its issues. Quarterback play and wide receiving play has definitely had its issues. Coverage has been solid, and maybe you could even bump the coverage up a little bit if you want to, but they're definitely a limited team. And for the Bears, offensive line's actually played decent, according to PFF, but Fields has struggled. The receiving core has struggled. They have some nice pieces on defense, but as a whole, definitely a lower tier defense as well. So that's why those 2 teams are there. And in fact, number 30, we have another 500 team. Interestingly enough, I don't think this ever happened last year. So very fascinating. Part of it might be a small sample size. These things will work themselves out as more games happen. But, the receiving core I thought the receiving core would still be decent without Hopkins. It has not lived up to what you would expect with the receiving core. It is still, tier 5. And because of that, I think that's hurt Kyler, who's, not been as good this year as he was in years past. But again, how much of that is the situation? Running game's still been good, but the defense has been atrocious. And that's the real reason why the Cardinals are so far back, is defense has really struggled. I expect Kyler to get better, so I don't think that 1.76 win total for the quarterback play will be what ends up happening at the end of the year. I think he'll get better, and I think that, Hopkins, whenever he gets back, will help the offense out a little bit. But the question is, how much would I help them? Number 29, the Panthers, who the offensive line's played solid. You have Christian McCaffrey in a running game doing some good stuff, and they even have some pieces on defense. So we're maybe getting to the, more competent teams here. I guess all these teams you could argue are competent. There is no huge loser, I would say. But, quarterback play and wide receiver play, again, if you're not getting any wins there, it's going to be tough for you to get too high on this list. The Balls, which is the Washington football team, similar thing. They have tier 4 quarterback play and wide receiver play, which is better, but still not great. They're not terrible really anywhere. They actually have some win totals everywhere across the board. Also, just set up for kickers, I still feel like there's not a big enough sample size, so I'm dividing all the wins equally for kickers for now. If I make one later, I will change that. But yeah, for Washington, I mean, the receiving play being as low as it was is definitely a surprise to me. I would not have expected that to be graded so poorly. I guess they haven't been overly. It looks like they have Curtis Samuel, Jahan Dotson, and Terry McLaurin all as solid, but none as great. So I expect that to improve, and I expect the Carson Wentz stuff for the quarterback play to also improve. So I think they'll be better than where they're at, but there still are some issues with this team. The Raiders are here at 27. Again, Raiders have had some stinkers, but I think that they're getting better. I do. Like, for one thing, Derek Carr being a tier 4 quarterback, that's going to improve. He's going to get better. He had a couple rough games, so the grade is fair, but also it's a small sample size. I expect that to improve. I also think I expect the receiving core to improve once they get better at this stuff. So, while yes, some of this stuff looks bad, I still don't know what's the ceiling, because again, they are 1-3. There's reason to be concerned. I think that their coverage has been disappointing heading into this season, but as a whole, they will get better. The question is just how much, in my opinion. Meanwhile, for number 26, the New England Patriots, who have been maybe my most disappointing team in this one, the quarterback play has been tough. Obviously, losing Mac Jones hurts, but Mac Jones also had a couple bad games to start as well. So if Jones is back and is healthy, again, you expect that to improve. Also, the coverage, which most people thought would struggle. I was kind of willing to say, hey, it's Bill Belichick. I believe he's going to figure it out. And he has figured it out to some degree, but there's also been some guys that have just, really been struggling out there. So it's been too inconsistent, and an inconsistent coverage is a bad coverage unit. I mean, it doesn't matter if you get most guys covered, you got to get them all covered because you can throw to the open guy and get yards that way. And then finally on this tier, the Houston Texans, who, again, been competent. Now, they have no wins here, so, that's obviously a concern. Clearly, the Raiders were the only 0-3 team heading into last week. The Texans were 0-2-1, so they have the tie. I guess you have that going for you. Their coverage has been solid. That's been the bright spot of this team. Davis Mills has not been bad. Davis Mills has actually been decent, a tier 3 quarterback. Like, that's cool. It's not great. Like, I don't think you're going to build a team around him, but he's proven he belongs in the NFL. They have a couple other pieces elsewhere, but as a whole, a team that still has a lot of work to do to really be competitive. All right, next 8 here. So we have, starting off with the Lions, who Lions have had, receiving core has been great for them. That's really been the team, kind of. Solid quarterback play from Jared Goff. He's been tier 3. The offensive line and defensive lines really haven't shown up and done that much. I mean, the defense as a whole, nothing going for them. 0 wins there. That's been the biggest issue, but they've done enough on offense to at least be competent. Moving on to the Colts at 23. Again, Matt Ryan has really struggled, and that's definitely been a disappointment, as Ryan wasn't great the past couple years for the Falcons, but wasn't this bad. So I don't know what's going on. Receiving core's not been great, but it hasn't been horrible either. It's been inconsistent, is what I would say there. That's why it has the tier 3 grade. And then I think the biggest disappointment is the defense. The defense was supposed to be great. This is supposed to be an elite coverage unit. It's been tier 4. That makes them look a lot worse. So that's kind of been the issue with the Colts. For the Jets, again, very unique Jets thing here, where they have another team that has wins in every single category here. Coverage has been solid, which, defense in general has been much improved from years past, and that's a big part of why they've been successful so far. And you do wonder, it's tier 4 quarterback play, but with the way Zach Wilson played in the fourth quarter, could that improve? If it could, there's even an outside chance this could be a fringe playoff team. I don't think that's crazy. We also have the Jaguars. So Jets and Jaguars will always be tied together as long as Zach Wilson and Trevor Lawrence are playing, because of, picking first and second in that draft. A lot of similarities with these two teams. Again, Jaguars defense played better. The receiving core has played solid. PFF was not a big fan of Trevor Lawrence's last game. It seemed like Lawrence is playing solid up into that, but he had a rough grade, and I get it, all those fumbles and stuff. But part of me wonders how much of that was weather. Could that be hurting them? I think the Jaguars are better than 21st. I think so. Also, the Seahawks here at 20 is hilarious because they have tier 1 quarterback play and tier 1 wide receiver play, and then all they have is, 0.24 wins for the running game, and that's all they get here. So very funny. Geno Smith, maybe MVP. No, probably won't happen. I think a big part of why their grades look so good was just because they played the Lions last week. So that inflated the stuff as well. Not to say that, receiving core is very good for Seattle, and Geno Smith has played well. That both are true, but I think it's, that'll come back down to earth a little bit. Number 19, the Dallas Cowboys, who have tier 5 quarterback play. So while Cooper Rush is getting the credit, he's maybe not the one who deserves the credit. It's really the coverage that deserves the credit. That's been fantastic. I had some concerns, and my concerns look very foolish now because they've answered every question and then some. Pass rush tier 1, coverage tier 1, getting some wins through that. And then you hope that Dak Prescott comes back, and that can allow this team to be, potentially a playoff team. The Chargers at 18, which, again, Justin Herbert has just a tier 3 quarterback grade. I would assume that would improve as the season goes on, but there are some concerns. The offensive line's been banged up, losing Rashawn Slater, there's just no getting around it. That just completely sucks. The defense has been, as advertised. This is, I think, what you would have hoped for a defense. Tier 3 coverage, tier 1 pass rush, and good, solid run defense as well. You have no issue with that. It's really just been the offense maybe could pick it up a little bit if you're looking at the grades. The number 17 team is the Baltimore Ravens, who, again, Pro Football Focus, the grading system always hurts Lamar Jackson. He always outperforms the grading system. I think they even kind of acknowledge he's sort of an outlier in that. So the Ravens always end up lower on the list than they probably should be. Receiving course played solid. Offensive lines played solid. Defense has been disappointing, I would say. I thought it was going to be really good. It's been, a very inconsistent, I think. So they're better than 8.84 wins because of the Lamar Jackson factor, but still, there's some holes on this team, but as a whole, I think they're very good. Next tier here, so we got the 8 that are, the playoff teams or the fringe playoff teams according to the algorithm. Some surprises, some teams that make sense, some teams that make zero sense. So we'll get into all of it and talk about, is there, why is this the case and what's going on. The 49ers, who, not great quarterback play through, and they haven't played the Monday night game. I'm doing this before Monday night game just because that's what makes more sense at the schedule for me. But, their defense has been what's getting them here. Really good defense, good offensive line, although, again, the Trent Williams injury, that's, that could hurt for sure. Expect the receiving core to pick it up a little bit. And again, their running game is always better than the algorithm says it should be because Shanahan can scheme guys open. So this stuff does not take coaching into account. Coaching can obviously cause you to overperform or underperform. So I assume that that's kind of what this team will be. Good running team that can defend well. The Titans are here at 15, who had a rough start. No denying that, but they picked it up massively since then. I was concerned about their pass rush heading into the season. They lost someone who was seemingly their best pass rusher heading into the season, and their pass rush has been great. So there you go. What do I know? Front seven in general, very good. Coverage could be a little bit better, but I expect it will be as the season goes on. Tannehill, tier 3. Receiving core has been tier 3. I actually think there's a lot of optimism for the Titans. They started so horribly with that loss to the Giants, but with Derrick Henry kind of getting back to being Derrick Henry, the whole team just looks better. So I think the Titans, I've been kind of going back and forth on who should be the favorite to win the division, but after looking at the analytics, at the PFF grades and running into my algorithm is what I should say, I think I'm more optimistic on the Titans. I think I'd pick the Titans to win the division as it stands now. The Saints are a team that, again, a lot of people are out on, but the algorithm is not. They have a good coverage unit right now, so that's definitely helping them. They have, okay quarterback play, whether it's Andy Dalton or Jameis Winston, it's okay. Okay receiving core, good offensive line. You can win some games that way. You can. Would I win 9.93? Well, no, because you can't win 0.93 games, but would I win 10 games? Probably not, because they're already 1-3, but, they're definitely not an easy out. The Denver Broncos are here at 13. Again, coverage unit's been fantastic. That's been the strength of this team, and that's kind of been what's carrying them, why they have 2 wins. Offensive line's also been very good. Russell Wilson, you'd like to see start playing better than tier 3, and the receiving core has just not been good. It just hasn't. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. This is supposed to be a great receiving core. It's really, it has a lot of guys who have names that but it hasn't been as good as maybe you would hope. Number 12, the Cincinnati Bengals, who are a team that last year, it felt like every time we did this, people said, the Bengals are too high. What are the Bengals doing here? Bengals, no way they should be that high, and then they went to the Super Bowl. So I like to criticize my own algorithm a lot, but the Bengals are an example of a time where the algorithm got them right, and they started off slow, but they're starting to get better. They're here at 12 now with, coverage being very good. Tier 2 coverage, you'll take that. Receiving core and quarterback play, you expect to continue getting better. The only real concern you have is I don't know how much better this offensive line is going to get. And it's really been bizarre because, they put all this effort into fixing it, but it's been the tackles that have actually been kind of the biggest issue, which the tackles are typically good for the Bengals. But Leo Collins has not been good so far in a Bengals uniform. And even Jonah Williams has been struggling. Again, I expect at least Jonah Williams to pick it up. Maybe the new scheme is causing Collins some trouble. I don't know. Maybe it's the injuries have caught up with him. I don't know what's going on there. But you hope that can continue. It can get better. There is room for improvement there. It's not like it's just going to be tier 5 all season. But listen, they nearly won a Super Bowl with a bad offensive line. So, they can handle it. The Pittsburgh Steelers are, they're not the 11th best team in football. I think I disagree with the algorithm on this one. But why do they have them here? So this, again, the 1-3 Pittsburgh Steelers are currently 11. And we'll talk about the team that's at number 9 in a second as well. They're very high on their quarterback play, which is surprising to me. They ended up with tier 2 quarterback play, but it's kind of one of those weird things where Mitchell Trubisky was the 14th ranked quarterback, but just due to injuries, they've kind of crept up and they've still been able to be, just barely the tier 2 quarterback play team. So that's probably not true. It's probably, I think tier 3 feels fine for me. I would put it there. I have no issue with that. But tier 2, feels different, and that's taking a win right off the bat. And if you do that, they drop out of this entire box. They go down to the next, previous page. So that would feel a little bit more right for me. So I think that's kind of the main thing, because I do think the offensive line has been surprisingly good so far. I think the receiving core being tier 3 feels right for me. And I think that their defense, all those things being where they are, feel right for me as well. Some people think the Steelers suck. I don't think the Steelers suck. I think the Steelers are all right. Although I do think they're lower than what this algorithm says. Moving on to number 10, the Miami Dolphins, who, again, still tier 1 quarterback play with Tua/Bridgewater, both playing well. Obviously, tier 1 wide receiving core. Offensive line still has its struggles, and the defense, actually, the coverage is currently, where it's at tier 5. But to me, I think that's probably more competition they've gone up against, more so than them actually playing poorly. I expect that to turn around. Again, coverage is the most difficult thing to predict in football. I mean, it can vary week to week so dramatically that it's hard to really sit here and say, that it'll continue this way. But, I expect things to get better. Like, I expect Byron Jones and Xavier Howard to just sort of, start to get better. They should be all right. I think they've just gone up against tough competition, which has hurt their grade. That's what I think. The Atlanta Falcons, who I think the issue with the Falcons, though, and probably part of why they might overperform on this algorithm, but not perform as well in the, in the regular season. And listen, they're 2-2, so them being at number 9 isn't that crazy. But I think that, one of the issues is on defense, when I have a tier 2 coverage unit, it's a lot of, being inconsistent, where there's some guys that you can sort of throw the ball towards and you can attack there, and because of that, it means that you're not actually getting the true value out of having a tier 2 coverage that you might if it was a bunch of just tier 2 quality players, instead of having some tier 1 quality players and some tier 5 quality players on that defense. So I think that's probably part of why they are where they are. But the receiving core has been very good. They don't throw it much, so you can't, they ran the ball so much last game, you can't tell too much about that. Quarterback play has been fine. I do wonder, though, if they, threw the ball more, would some of that go down a little bit? But the Falcons, I mean, they have been, surprisingly good. And listen, it happens all the time where I see a team that seems way higher than what I think they should be on the analytical power rankings, and I say, oh, okay, well, that's silly. The algorithm, not exactly perfect. But then it turns out that I'm wrong. I mean, I remember last year when the Patriots kept losing games, but the algorithm still loved them. And I was like, okay, this is silly. This team clearly isn't competitive. And then the Patriots made the playoffs. So it does happen. Maybe the Falcons will be that team. Next group, top 8 here. So we have the Packers at 8, which feels right for me. Like, they've been winning games, and that's what you like. But, and they actually say the receiving core has been pretty good, but it's had its issues, I would say. So, because of that, the offensive line's definitely had its issues. The running game's been awesome, though. Aaron Rodgers has been a tier 2 quarterback, who, let's be honest, he's a tier 1 quarterback. Coverage has still been very good. A lot of stuff to like about this team. There's still some concern about if they go up against a good secondary, could there be issues? But they're a great team. They belong here on the top tier. Number 7, the Cleveland Browns, who have tier 1 quarterback grade play, which I don't know if that'll continue with Jacoby Brissett. Again, PFF, the quarterback grades I've always kind of compared to a batting average, where as long as you just hit a high percentage of your plays, you'll be all right, but that doesn't necessarily completely equate to being great. But again, it's also small sample size, 4 games. Like, that part kind of makes it understandable. The rest of the team's been solid, but again, they kind of feel like a team that's probably just below a playoff spot, in my opinion, with Jacoby Brissett. But, once Watson gets there, things could be very different. Number 6, the reigning champs, another team that, did very well in the algorithm last year, above what a lot of people thought they should be. Stafford's played well, receiving core's played well. They played tonight, so some chances to improve. But here at 6, checks out to me. The Vikings at 5, who are a very similarly built team to the Rams, actually. A lot of very similar things here. They have a slightly better pass rush, and the slightly worse receiving core, but also better running game. So that's why the Vikings are a little bit ahead of the Rams. But these two teams are close. These two teams are very similarly built. I think the difference is, the Rams have a quarterback who is known for going off at certain points and had a great playoff run. Will we see that from Cousins? I don't know. The Bills are still here at number 4, despite some inconsistencies. There's definitely been some inconsistencies with this Buffalo Bills team, but, offensive line not been great. Josh Allen has at times looked fantastic. Again, 4 weeks in, so you have one kind of rougher game and it brings you down to tier 2, but he's still been very good. Receiving core has been great. Defense has been awesome, so that's why they're here at 4. They are the second best team in the AFC, but the best team, the Kansas City Chiefs, with tier 2 quarterback Patrick Mahomes. That guy's never going to be graded as a tier 1 quarterback for PFF. I don't know what he has to do to make that happen, but definitely, again, it kind of makes sense if you know how the grading system works. He's not necessarily the highest batting average type guy, but he hits a lot of home runs. That's who he is. It still has a pretty high batting average. Receiving core has been, I felt like going into the season, it was getting too much criticism, but it even exceeded my expectations of what's happened. Offensive line's been great. Defense has been much better than expected. I had some concerns about their defense, and, their defense has been actually a strength of this team. So, all of that combined, they are absolutely a contender. Surprisingly, though, not number 2 or number 1 on this list. Maybe it's just a small sample size, but they are currently behind the team that they just lost to. Not what I would have in my own power rankings, but in this power rankings, this is where they're at. And the biggest reason is because PFF has given Brady a tier 1 quarterback grade and Mahomes a tier 2 quarterback grade. I'm not saying Brady hasn't earned his tier 1 quarterback grade. I think he has, but I think Mahomes has as well. So I would, give the Chiefs another 1.2 wins to their expected total and put them at number 2 on this list. I would do that. But this isn't my list. I don't have an impact in where these things are graded. I just made the algorithm. So for the Buccaneers, the reason why they're so high is coverage and quarterback has been great, which it has. That thing has been true. And even that Kansas City Chiefs game, well, yes, there were some concerns. They gave up a ton of yards. A lot of it was just the Chiefs were awesome. Like, a lot of it was just the Chiefs were playing incredible. So I don't think it's crazy to have the Bucs as a top tier team here, because you just, you expect that the Brady impact will start to just, you expect it to start to work better once he actually has guys to throw to, and you expect it to work better when you don't have to play the Kansas City Chiefs. Seems like those are the two main things, but neither of those teams are number 1. It is the Philadelphia Eagles, who have really come out here hot out of the gate. Jalen Hurts, who we felt like this team could be a real contender if Jalen Hurts played like a tier 3 quarterback. The guy's playing like a tier 1 quarterback and maybe just the best quarterback in football, period. Now, he didn't have his best week last week, but he's in the MVP conversation 4 weeks into the season. He absolutely is, and was still solid last week. Receiving core has been tier 1, offensive line has been tier 1, coverage has been tier 1, and run defense and pass rush has still been very good. So while the only real 0 on this team is the running game, it actually is a lot better than that because Jalen Hurts helps set some stuff up. So you can maybe even argue that the algorithm hurts them more than it helps them, and they're still projected for 15 wins. Now, I expect that'll go down. It is a bit of a small sample size, but Eagles probably should be the favorites right now, 4 weeks in. I think the Chiefs probably should be the second favorites. That's what I think. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.